Welcome back, everyone, to the Sales Leaders Podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest. This is Chris Wilson. He is the Managing Director of Influence Marketing in Mississauga, Ontario. So Chris has 25 plus years in the business. He's an agency owner and operator of Influence Marketing Group of companies. So they're executing award-winning campaigns for many blue chip Canadian corporations. So currently, Chris has 50 plus employees. He's a father of 3 and resides in Oakville, Ontario. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. Really looking forward to this interview. I know you have a lot of insight, and we look forward to digging in.
Thanks for the warm welcome.
Yes.
Pleasure.
Alrighty, so let's get into it, because I'm sure there's going to be many people on our channel that are aspiring agency owners or in the marketing field, and they want to learn how to expand their business. But, you don't just start with success. So my first question for you, Chris, is take us back to the beginning, where it all started. What's the story of how you got started, and what was your first actual sale?
So it's a strange origin story, but I'll say it as succinctly as I can. I actually was in a different industry. I was a golf professional and had aspirations of doing that as a profession for life, and loved it and was very passionate about it. But realized that it was a challenging industry, like many, and I decided to take a leave of absence and try something else. And um, Fortunately, I have taken that opportunity from a entry-level position all the way to where I am today. So I had a great first opportunity to join a company, which was a promotions company that had an event arm. And I very much underestimated the skill set I'd built for myself in the golf business. When I look back at it now, I was managing people, I was public speaking, I was selling and operating a business on behalf of my employer. So it was a great skill set that transferred to other spaces. And the space that I joined was event marketing. So I sort of felt like I'd already been operating sort of events at a club level, even provincial and national championships. So I was quite comfortable making the jump. And the first opportunity I had was to work on a golf program. And after the first year of executing this program, I realized, and I sort of went to the partners in the business and I said, why are we executing this program when we could own it? It seems like we're selling all of the sponsorship and calling all the clubs, and executing the program feels like something that we could proprietarily own. And we did that. We bought it away from the original operator, and I sold title sponsorship to Volvo Cars of Canada. And they believed in this vision that we created. And little did I know that first official sale would translate into something that not only was a success in Canada, but it actually ended up becoming like a toolkit that we took around the world to 19 other countries. So my first sale was not a small one. My first sale really was a significant sale that really kind of solidified me in this industry and led to a whole bunch of growth in the business and ultimately partnership. So I remember that first sale fondly.
Amazing. Yeah, and some of the people that are watching here may not have such a successful, massive first sale, right? But some will. So, maybe once you experience that, tapping into larger kind of deal sizes, you start to realize, why go for the little guys, right? Let's keep the momentum going and keep the deal size and keep our deal kind of approach. So that's exciting. Awesome.
Yeah. When you hit a grand slam in your first opportunity, you realize that you can't sustain that. So reality came crashing down hard, obviously, but it was a nice opportunity that kind of springboarded some additional opportunities down the road.
Yeah, totally. All right, awesome. So, well, when you look at your business now, and it's very established, pretty large business, right? But what would you say growth means to you? Is it revenue? Is it market share? Is it your team size? Is it something else?
It's a great question, and I think that answer has sort of changed over the years. But now the answer is very simple. It's EBITDA. It's
Okay.
net profit.
Mm.
So maybe when I was a younger guy with not as much runway, the clients we work with mattered. The size of the team mattered. The revenue numbers mattered. I cared about the revenue numbers, the size of the business from a revenue perspective. But over time, as I've become, a little bit more savvy a business guy and less of a execution guy or someone who, cared deeply about the actual projects that we were working and whether or not they were sexy or whether or not they were going to win awards, much of that is eroded. And now I care a lot more about the bottom line. It's the bottom line. It's the EBITDA number that allows me to build value in my businesses, that allows me to make investments, to risk capital. So that is, very simply, it's about net profit. That's how we determine growth. And I heard a long time ago the expression of, revenue is vanity and profit is sanity. I live it every day. I mean, quite often we can get very high revenue projects, but especially in this climate, being focused on margins is critical.
Totally. And it seems like that being focused on margins really keeps a strong foundation of the business, right? Focusing on fundamentals. I mean, that's how we look at our business as well. So thank you for sharing that. So what would you
Yeah.
say though your vision for sales is in the next 3 to 5 years? Now, you could say, what is your vision for sales in the next 3 to 5 years? But I'm going to ask you a little more deeper question. In the next, each of those next 3 to 5 years, in each of those years, what do you say that your vision looks like?
Well, let me preface it by saying my vision has changed dramatically over the years. In the same way I said I had a big first sale and then, fell down on subsequent opportunities. I'm always challenging the sales team with new initiatives or new programs. But what I have identified, and over 25 years, you kind of identify what's working and what's not working. That
Hmm.
said, the climate's changing so rapidly. But one key insight that I have identified, that while we have outreach strategies and CRM strategies, and we're always looking to kind of bolster those and refine those, the one thing that I'm focused on, which I've done a poor job of in the past, is actively promoting my own business and not our customers' business. I mean, I live below the line. I exist to service other companies, but I think we have done a poor job of promoting our own business. And that's me getting out there and not selling by knocking on doors or responding to an inbound opportunity, but that's selling to the marketplace broadly by doing more things like this with you, or standing on stages and talking about, our view of what live engagement looks like as you uh, break up your marketing mix moving forward, or how our services can actually support businesses. I have to do a better job of reaching the industry and really kind of raising the profile of our business. As a business that's been around for 30 years, our awareness levels are too low. Those who know about us know we're, established and medium sized and nimble and creative, and we execute well. But I think I have done a disservice to the business by maybe not having a little bit more of a chip on our shoulder, finding a little bit too much humility. And I think we need to more actively promote the core business.
That's a good point because oftentimes, and we'll speak to, I've spoken to many business owners of all types of businesses and sizes. They generally fall into one of three groups. First group is, they're happy. They're growing a rate they're happy with. They're comfortable. Salespeople in themselves are proactively hunting for business at a rate that they're happy with. They're closing business at a rate that they're comfortable. Obviously, they could always do better, but they're good. So not much change needs to be there. Then the second group, they're struggling. They're not hitting their targets the way they could or should. They're not proactive enough. They're not communicating value as effectively as they could or should. They're not their closing ratios are too low after putting together quotes and demos and proposals. But then there's a third group. That's the visionary group. So, yeah, they're hitting targets. They may even be exceeding targets, but for people in that group, it's never enough, right? It's never enough. And, that it's a unique group there. right? So they're the they're
Mm.
they're they're the people that are, often leading in the industry. They're often very innovative, and they're doing whatever it takes to support their themselves and their team and their business, even though they're already shooting it out the park. So I appreciate your leadership and your tenaciousness in that regard. So on like okay, so on a scale, so if you're saying that your vision is to really start promoting your business, I would assume that you have other people that are also part of that team to help promote your business.
Yeah, and I've sort of done all the sales jobs inside the organization. So, I can look them in the eye and say, I've done your job. But I think I'm challenging myself to do that. I mean, I think our sales folks are the ones that can try and find existing opportunities and grow organically. They're doing independent one-to-one outreach. They're managing that CRM process and writing the value-added newsletter. We've got a lot of great initiatives for the existing sales team, but I think we'll speak about this maybe a little bit later on, if we're talking about kind of, advice to give others, because what I've realized through the process is I built this business being a salesperson. And as the business has grown, I do less and less of it.
Mhm.
I empower others to do that, but I do believe that I'm uniquely good at it. And I think this is my opportunity to sort of promote the agency generally, sell the business, not just sell a specific opportunity,
Right.
sell the business in an effort to generate, a little bit more inbound. I'd love to walk off a stage and have someone say, I'm buying what you're selling, or that resonates with me, or can I challenge you to show us how your services can support our business? I think that is how I can kind of re-engage in the sales process, while still empowered, to not cross over and sell against my team, to kind of promote them to stick handle what they currently are, while I focus on uh, unique new channel.
Totally. And how committed would you say you are to that, and why?
Well, I've publicly pledged it to the business, so that means I have to do it now. I
It's
can't be,
recorded.
falling down. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm committed. So, it started with repositioning the agency and kind of figuring out what our unique value proposition was, because we have so many competitors that do similar things. And that was kind of hard for me to figure out, but I worked with a very talented sort of outside supplier. And now that we have that story, and it's not just a story, it's actually kind of our rep, it's our DNA. Now that I'm passionate about that story, I'm excited to actually go tell it. So I needed to craft the story first. But yeah, very excited about it, because I think it does very much separate us in the industry versus our competitors, which until now I've very much struggled. If someone said, "Well, what do you do uniquely different than anyone else?" I would have, if I was being very honest and transparent, I would have had a hard time communicating that effectively.
Wow. Well, I appreciate your honesty and candor. Obviously, people that have massive successful companies are they still have the sense that they should be doing more, and the responsibility to do more. So that's awesome. So what would you say is working best for you to generate new leads now, and how would you say that has changed since you started? I'm sure there's a lot of change.
Yeah, I
Maybe there's
think,
none.
yeah, I mean, it starts with hires. I have not batted at high average in finding very talented sales folks. And I think that's part of the challenge, is once you have A players to support those A players
Hmm.
who are very much passionate about the products that you're selling,
Hmm.
and the services you provide and the solutions you solve. Um, and we all know that, there's different verticals inside a business. There's sales, and there's marketing, and there's the execution arms, and they all have to work together. So when I kind of lay out who an A player is, it's not just someone who's capable of selling, but someone who's like really good at executing that program with teammates,
Hmm.
and kind of aligning on what those objectives are. So for me, it's the quality of that team. It always goes back to the quality of the staff that I have, and maybe accepting less than A players for too long. I could criticize myself for that, believing in what they can bring rather than believing in their results, even after that you've provided them enough sort of runway to prove their capability.
Hmm.
So I think I need to be a little bit more, um, aware of that
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah, it's tough when you've spent time supporting someone and, maybe, I'm not saying this is you, but oftentimes people will look excellent on paper. They'll look even better in an interview. Maybe they even have a track record of being successful in their sales role. But sometimes even though they look good on paper in an interview, when it comes to the point where they actually have to apply the proactive business development behavior, for some people, that's really uncomfortable, right? It can be very uncomfortable, especially if it's a new process that they may not be used to following. So they'll look good on paper, but when the rubber hits the asphalt and they're actually required to do the behavior, they completely bomb. And it can be disheartening because a bad hire, as you know, can cost 3 times their salary, right? So, how to effectively and efficiently fish out deficiencies or strengths and weaknesses before spending time coaching, training, supervising, onboarding, mentoring people. That's there's a benefit. We see a benefit there. And what you're saying is totally not uncommon. So, like, what would you say, obviously, business it's great when it's great. Business is great when it's great, but every business, they have a messy middle, right? There's a bit of a messy middle. So, could you be kind enough to share a time when a
Mm.
deal or a hire or a strategy even didn't go as planned? And what did you learn from it?
So I'll pull on that hire thread a little,
Mhm.
but and there's so many of these deals. Lots of stuff starts on M&A deals, and we have grown significantly through acquisition, not just through sales.
Mhm.
So I've learned a lot about that. Those are very challenging and require so much energy and often come up short of the finish line. Hires we talked a little bit about, and it's nice to hear that I'm not the only one struggling with it. But
Mhm.
either seeing the good and not doing the diligence, or giving too much runway. And I've learned that I have to dive deeper, more than just reference checks. And I think the way that I've gotten myself comfortable is to actually have them show their work, right? To sell to me, to either put a direct challenge in front of them and say, respond to this direct challenge, and not give them a whole bunch of time to prepare for that, to see how they think on their feet and whether or not that critical thinking in the moment is there, or to pitch me the work that they've already pitched. Assume that you're selling to me. Let me see some of the work that you're proud of and pitch that to me. And there's no hiding in that process. That's where I get to see how they command a room, the strength of communication, how effectively they're communicating their messaging. And that's where, when you get past the resume and you ask them to stand in front of a group of people and actually, share their capabilities, that's where I wish I'd done a lot more diligence in years past. And that's certainly a new practice for us moving forward.
Totally, and not to mention, just bottom line, sales has changed, right? Sales
Yes.
process what has worked 20 years ago is different. What has worked 5 years ago may not be as effective now. So, there's a constant, change happening in the modern buying arena. So yeah, and that's why it's important not to just rely on instinct or experience, but to use data-driven processes to fish out this information, right? As I'm sure you're very familiar with different AI tools and stuff like that, but there's incredible tools that are very not expensive at all that can find out before you spend time, money, resources, onboarding, training, and recruiting to find out the probability if this person is even going to perform well with excruciatingly painful accuracy. So when you look ahead the next 12 to 24 months, what would you say the biggest growth or transformation opportunities you see? Also, on the flip side, what's the biggest risk in the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, certainly we're all in on, that piece I touched on earlier about effectively, communicating the agency's capability and doing that in a way more public way.
Hmm.
We're not a brand new business that's out there trying to say, consider us. I think we have a long tenure in history, and I'm excited about that. And from a risk perspective, I mean, it's just impossible to not be a feel that there's still so much uncertainty with regarding, the economy generally. Our revenues are flat, our margins are way down. Cost of goods is way up. Feels like the client side expectations, certainly have not been adjusted. If at all, they've increased as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the marketplace competitiveness is at an absolute all-time high.
Mm-hmm.
And with that margin shrink comes desperation in the marketplace. So we've seen businesses, very much behaving badly, taking work on lower than acceptable margin in an effort to, cover payroll or management fees. So that's a risk that we're still living, and still a lot of uncertainty. We do a lot of cross-border work with beverage alcohol companies. That's been seriously impacted.
Yep.
Obviously, that's the lowest hanging fruit, but generally a lot of our customers, I think, are holding budget, keeping their powder dry. They're concerned they're going to have to take price increases, and that means increased cost of goods on their side as well. So yeah, that's still a big part of what we're dealing with day to day as we try and grow the business. And you asked what's growth? Well, it can't be revenue because you need to be laser focused on margin in a
Right.
time that the belt is tightening.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. So, in our world, what you're explaining is very common for many people. But in our world, what we say is, you have a choice. You can either curl up into fetal position and wait for a doll to blow over, or you can adapt and adopt different, more effective, efficient tools. And there always are more. And prospect harder, bottom line, right? So, how do
Yeah.
you approach sales effectiveness training and development, both for yourself, and which was interesting? You said you wanted to put more, effectiveness training on for yourself, but
Mhm.
also for your team. I'm curious to know how you approach that with your team right now.
I'm trying to knock down every hurdle or objection they have, right? With the best in class software, best in class sales materials, everything at their reach.
Hmm.
You know, I remember a time where everything required customization, and we had way too much time invested in something that was very low in the lead funnel.
Hmm.
So really trying to unlock the resources of the business when we have a tangible lead and not just something that maybe for a salesperson represents upside, but has a long way to go. But I don't have a problem saying, like, as much as there's no lack of initiative, it's an area that I would say we're weak. Like we're continuing to try as well. You talked about it earlier, how sales is changing so significantly. Well, I'm not replacing my existing sales team that often. So these sales folks are, very tenured and experienced, but that means they're also aging, relative to the economic buyer that's sitting with
Yeah.
them. We don't want to have our buyers or our customers feeling like our sales team are irrelevant relative to a changing landscape. So really, it's just my job to knock down every hurdle or objection that they have. I'll support them with as much process as I can. I'll join them. Um, you know, as we're getting closer, as that lead goes through the funnel, I have no problem putting a subject matter expert beside them and letting them know that you're not a one man wrecking crew. You cannot be a lone wolf. Once you get traction to a point where you need that additional subject matter expertise, you have to bring in the subject matter expert. You can't, we're salespeople are generalists unless they're very, very deeply skilled, in all the services or all the products. I think they have to be willing to raise their hand when they need that support to get it across the finish line.
Definitely. Yeah, and maybe I don't know if this is your situation, but for many of the people that have been running successful sales organizations, whether it's marketing agencies and the like, a lot of these situations didn't require such heavy prospecting, such laser focused sales effectiveness skills. A lot of companies, they were in a situation where they were almost, not to degrade their role, but they were almost like order takers. Business is
Yeah.
coming in, opportunities are coming in, and they're just doing their best to remain not at capacity, which is awesome. But the market has shifted, and most buyers already know what they want before they speak to the salesperson. So the ability to not only initiate buyer focused conversations with decision makers, but also really drill down what types of questions to ask in what order to find out, the probability, is this even going to go anywhere? that increases, because the last thing you
Mhm.
want to do is start spending all this time, money, and energy, just responding to anyone who asks for a quote, or
Yes.
jump on doing multiple demos and proposals without any data or insight of the probability of this even going anywhere. Not to say that's a problem you have, but for a lot of people that run sales organizations, they aren't able to accurately forecast revenue. So
Yes.
that's totally, I hear what you're saying. So when you hire salespeople, whether it's now or in the past, what are some of the greatest challenges that you have experienced when hiring salespeople so far?
This is I'm going to sound like an old guy, but I kind of wonder where the entrepreneurial spirit's gone. That I whether it's a junior salesperson or a senior person, but let's focus on someone that's somewhere in the middle. There seems to be this expectation that it's the business's obligation to, um, pay them a significant base salary, but there seems to be a lot less willingness to um, participate in the upside, to invest in themselves, essentially. So it becomes a much harder conversation, or certainly the runway becomes a lot shorter when you're demanding such a significant pace without believing in your ability to actually close deals.
Mhm.
And I feel like those are the best relationships because the employee is essentially not only betting on themselves, but they're betting on the business. When they choose to join the agency, they're joining not only because they believe that it's a good place for them, but they believe in what the agency is selling, what its experience is and its capabilities are, the services they can take to market. I want to know that when they come here, it's because they believe that they can make an impact, and they'll be passionate about those services and the story of our business. So, I know that's a little bit of a sticking point, and that might be a personal one, but I know that I was a young guy that was pushing into a new industry that was, not kind of knocking on my boss's door saying, what do I need to do to get to this level or the next level? And I always pushed for a clear answer. And anytime anyone comes through my door now and shows some ambition or entrepreneurial spirit, boy, do I ever support it, because I just sort of feel like it's hard to find.
Totally. Yeah, and a lot of people are effective in, let's say, this is kind of a curveball comment, but a lot of the people, they're really good in school. They're really good in university and studying and getting good marks. But when it comes to managing adults in business, it's completely different. It's
Yeah, well
completely
said.
different. So, yeah, like, I hear you. So because in bottom line though, it's all about accountability and self accountability, accountability of the managers to hold their people accountable, creating repercussions if they don't do specific behaviors, right? That
Mhm.
maybe that wasn't happening before in some businesses, and reinforcing behavior, right? But it's not just on the manager and the senior leaders that people need to hold themselves accountable. And it's tough when managers and business owners are hoping to invest in people, but they're not investing in themselves. So that, unfortunately, can be pretty demoralizing.
Mhm.
Um, all right. Well, thinking about your own leadership, what would you say has been the hardest adjustment that you'd have to had to make as the company
Mm.
has grown?
Well, I'm crystal clear on this one, and we touched on it earlier that, eh, you know, uh, I built the business selling, um, figured out the rest of it, but I knew that my sort of unique ability was sales. And as the business grew, I sold less and operated more. I'm an operator now. I have we have 3 businesses and 50 employees, and the question is, am I right to be an operator, or should I be focused on selling if I'm truly being asked to provide the most value to the business with the hours that I have to give it? So, that's dangerous,
Hmm.
not using your unique ability all the time. And I think that's led me to this new initiative that we have of me, maybe not selling one client at a time, but more actively promoting the agency. And that doesn't, that's not something that would come easy to me. Of course, I'm passionate about speaking about my business, but I'd much rather be here supporting my people or our existing clients. But I think that's definitely one of the hardest adjustments is maybe saying goodbye to the thing that you were most successful with, but more importantly, that you enjoyed the most, right? If you're using your unique ability, you enjoy it, you're adding value to the organization. So, moving from a salesperson to an operator has been slow, but over time, it's what's required, but something to be aware of for sure.
Totally. And oftentimes there's a bunch of sales training support, right? But there's not a lot of sales leadership training support. Because like
Mm,
oftentimes you'll have someone who's an absolute rock star in sales, right? And then they're promoted to some type of leadership role, sales leadership role, and it's completely different. They almost feel, a little confused. But that's because, there's a lot more that goes into to leading sales teams than just training and supervising. You're coaching, you're mentoring, you're dealing with people's emotions, their motivations, their values. Um,
mhm.
so yeah, totally. But yeah, if you have a talent there, you definitely don't want to squander it. Um, so I mean, bottom line, kind of looking at the growth of your business and what you've been through and the things that you've learned, and again, you're very candid. I appreciate that. What is one piece of advice that you give to an Ontario business owner who's hit a growth ceiling? What would it be? What would that one piece of advice be?
I think as you grow and your team size increases, it becomes easier to not accept A players in every role. And that would be my advice is just don't settle. Um, Push for an A player in every role. Make a point of evaluating everyone very simply every 30 days on a scale of 1 to 10. And if the scores don't change over a period of a few months, then you owe it to yourself and the other people in your organization to find an A player for that role. Um, I think I've just been probably far too accepting of, someone who gets it done but isn't outstanding. And I think that gets noticed on the floor of your business. Um, and that can have kind of a damaging consequence. So I would say, obviously you want A players in all your leadership roles, and that's what got you there. But the deeper those A players can go onto your roster, um, the better chance you have of breaking through that ceiling. You can't do it on your own. As you grow, you have to rely on others, and it's the quality of the others that will determine your growth potential.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Well, this has been super insightful. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to have a bit of a wake up call when they listen to this. So I appreciate your insights and sharing your experiences and hope to see you again.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it very much.